The bullet grazed Olivia Walsh's shoulder as she dove behind the overturned wagon, her breath coming in ragged gasps that had nothing to do with fear and everything to do with the bone-deep exhaustion that had become her constant companion. Blood seeped through her cotton blouse, but she barely felt it anymore. She had been running for 3 weeks straight, ever since her father's business partner had decided that inheriting her father's half of the most profitable cattle ranch in San Jose, California, was worth committing murder. The year was 1884, and justice was a luxury that women like her could rarely afford. She pressed her back against the weathered wood of the wagon, closing her eyes for just a moment. The hot July sun beat down mercilessly on the dusty Main Street, and she could hear Garrett Morrison's men closing in from both sides. There were 4 of them, maybe 5. She had lost count somewhere between Gilroy and here, somewhere between the 3rd ambush and the 4th narrow escape. Her rifle was nearly empty, her hands were shaking, and for the first time since this nightmare began, Olivia felt the crushing weight of hopelessness settling over her shoulders like a leaden cloak. "Come on out, Miss Walsh," Morrison's voice called from somewhere near the general store. "You are only making this harder on yourself. Sign over the ranch and we can all go home peacefully." Olivia almost laughed at that, peacefully. As if her father had died peacefully. As if the bullet holes in his study wall had been peaceful. As if the way they had burned the ranch foreman's cabin with him inside had been peaceful. Morrison wanted her signature on a piece of paper that would make him sole owner of the Triple Crown Ranch, and then he wanted her dead. The order did not particularly matter to him. She checked her ammunition. 3 bullets left. 3 bullets against 5 men, and she could barely hold the rifle steady anymore. When had she last eaten? Yesterday. The day before. The world swam in and out of focus, and she realized dimly that she might be in shock from the shoulder wound. It did not matter. Nothing seemed to matter anymore except the simple, animal instinct to survive that kept her fingers wrapped around the gun. "I am coming in," one of Morrison's men shouted, and Olivia heard boots crunching on the dirt, coming around the left side of the wagon. She raised her rifle, sighted down the barrel, and pulled the trigger. The recoil nearly knocked her backwards, but the man went down with a curse, clutching his leg. Not a killing shot. She did not have killing shots left in her. She had left those behind somewhere in the hills outside town, along with her hope and her faith that anything good remained in this world. 2 bullets. The main street of San Jose had cleared the moment the shooting started. Olivia did not blame the townspeople for hiding. This was not their fight, and Morrison had enough money and influence to make life very difficult for anyone who helped her. She was alone, just as she had been alone since the moment she had found her father's body slumped over his desk 3 weeks ago. "That was foolish, Miss Walsh," Morrison called out, and now his voice had an edge to it. "Boys, I am tired of playing games. Take her." Olivia heard them moving, coordinating, spreading out to come at her from multiple angles at once. She gripped her rifle tighter and tried to stand, but her legs would not cooperate. The world tilted sideways, and she found herself on her knees in the dust, struggling to stay conscious. The blood from her shoulder had soaked through her entire sleeve now, dripping onto the ground beside her. She was going to die here. The realization came with an odd sense of calm. At least she had fought. At least her father would have been proud of that much. She had not made it easy for them. The sound of a horse approaching at full gallop cut through her fading consciousness. Someone was shouting, but the words blurred together. Olivia forced her eyes open and saw a man dismounting from a black stallion in one fluid motion, his duster coat sweeping around him as he positioned himself between her and Morrison's men. He wore a wide-brimmed hat that shadowed his face, and 2 revolvers hung low on his hips in the kind of worn holsters that spoke of long practice and quick draws. "That is far enough," the stranger said, and his voice carried across the street with quiet authority. "This does not concern you, Turner," Morrison replied, and Olivia heard something in his tone that might have been respect or might have been fear. "The woman is a criminal, wanted for theft." "Funny," the stranger said, and Olivia noticed he had not moved his hands far from his guns. "I just came from the sheriff's office, and he does not seem to know anything about any wanted posters for Miss Walsh. But he was very interested to hear about the fire at the Triple Crown that killed Ben Patterson. Especially interested when I mentioned I saw 5 riders leaving the ranch that night, and none of them were women." Olivia's vision was darkening around the edges, but she saw Morrison stiffen. "You are making a mistake, Turner." "No," the man called Turner said quietly. "I think I stopped making mistakes about the time I decided to ride back and see what all the fuss was about. Now here is what is going to happen. You and your boys are going to get on your horses and ride out of San Jose. Miss Walsh is going to get medical attention. And then we are all going to have a nice long conversation with the law about property rights and dead ranch owners. There are 5 of us and 1 of you," Morrison said, but his voice had lost some of its certainty. "Actually, there are 4 of you since Miss Walsh already took care of one," Turner replied. "And yes, there is 1 of me. But I am thinking you have heard enough about me to know how this ends if you want to push it." The silence stretched out, broken only by the labored sound of Olivia's breathing. She tried to focus on the stranger's back, tried to understand why he was helping her, but her thoughts were scattering like startled birds. She had never seen him before in her life. Had she? "This is not over," Morrison finally said. "Yeah, it is," Turner replied. "You just do not know it yet." Olivia heard horses, men riding away, angry voices fading into the distance. The stranger waited until the sound had disappeared entirely before he turned around and dropped to one knee beside her. For the first time, she saw his face clearly. He was younger than she had expected, maybe 26 or 27, with dark hair and eyes the color of storm clouds. His face was tanned from years in the sun, and a scar ran along his jawline, but his expression was gentle as he looked at her. "Let me see that shoulder," he said softly. Olivia tried to answer, tried to ask him why he was helping her, tried to tell him that Morrison would come back with more men, but the words would not form. The exhaustion that she had been fighting for 3 weeks finally caught up with her all at once, and the world went dark. She woke to the smell of carbolic acid and clean linens. For a moment, panic seized her and she tried to sit up, reaching for a weapon that was not there. Strong hands pressed her gently back against the pillows. "Easy now," a woman's voice said. "You are safe. You are at Doc Hartley's place." Olivia forced her eyes open and found herself looking at a middle-aged woman with kind eyes and graying hair. "Morrison," she managed to say. "Morrison and his men left town 2 hours ago," the woman said, dabbing at Olivia's forehead with a cool cloth. "The sheriff has sent telegrams to the territorial marshal. There are going to be some questions about what happened at the Triple Crown Ranch." She paused, studying Olivia's face. "I am sorry about your father, dear. Thomas Walsh was a good man." The grief hit Olivia like a physical blow, and she turned her face away. She had not had time to mourn, had not had time to process anything except survival. Now, in the safety of a stranger's care, the tears finally came. The woman did not tell her not to cry. She simply held Olivia's hand and let her weep until there was nothing left inside but a hollow, aching emptiness. "The man who helped me," Olivia finally said when she could speak again. "Turner. Who is he?" The woman's expression softened. "That would be William Turner." He owns a horse ranch about 10 miles north of here. Good man, keeps to himself mostly. Used to be a lawman down in Texas from what I hear, but he gave it up a few years back, looking for something quieter, I suppose. Why did he help me? Olivia asked. The woman smiled. You would have to ask him that yourself. He has been sitting outside this room for the past 6 hours, waiting to make sure you woke up. She stood and moved toward the door. I will let him know you are awake. Before Olivia could protest, the woman had slipped out. A moment later, William Turner stepped through the doorway, his hat in his hands. He looked tired, and she noticed for the first time the lines around his eyes, the weariness that came from seeing too much violence in one lifetime. He reminded her of her father in that moment, and the thought made her throat tighten. "Miss Walsh," he said quietly, "it is good to see you awake." "Why did you help me?" she asked directly. She had never been one for dancing around questions. William was silent for a moment, turning his hat in his hands. "I knew your father," he finally said. "Not well, but we did business together a few times. He sold me some horses last year, good stock at a fair price. More than that, though, he was honest. That is rare enough out here." He met her eyes. "When I heard what happened, I started asking questions. The answers I got did not add up right. Then I heard Morrison was hunting you, claiming you had stolen from the ranch, and I knew something was wrong. Thomas Walsh would not have raised a thief." Olivia felt something crack inside her chest, some wall she had built to keep functioning these past weeks. "He was murdered," she whispered. "I came home from town and found him in his study. There was a contract on his desk, a new partnership agreement with Morrison. My father had refused to sign it. Morrison wanted full control of the ranch, wanted to push the cattle operation into land that belonged to the Olone people. My father would not agree to it. So Morrison killed him," William said, "and it was not a question. I heard horses that night, saw riders leaving the property. I knew if I stayed, I would be next. I took what I could carry and ran." She looked down at her bandaged shoulder. "I have been running ever since." William pulled a chair close to the bed and sat down. "You can stop running now," he said. "I spoke to the sheriff, told him what I saw the night of the fire. More than that, I rode out to the Triple Crown yesterday and found some interesting things. Seems Morrison was not as careful as he thought about covering his tracks. There were boot prints near your father's study window, and the safe had been blown open. A thief would have taken the money that was inside. It was still there. Morrison wanted the partnership papers destroyed," Olivia said. "My father kept the original in his safe. Without it, and with me dead, Morrison could claim the ranch was entirely his. He had forged documents ready to file." "Had," William said with grim satisfaction. "The territorial marshal is very interested in those forged documents now. Morrison is not going to touch you again, Miss Walsh. He has bigger problems to worry about." Olivia wanted to believe him, but 3 weeks of paranoia and fear did not disappear with a few words. "He has money and influence. He will find a way out of this." "Maybe," William acknowledged, "but he will have to do it while people are watching him now. And he knows that if anything happens to you, I am going to come looking for answers." He said it quietly, without bravado, and somehow that made it more convincing than any amount of bluster would have been. "You do not owe me anything," Olivia said. "You have already done more than anyone else would have." William was quiet for a long moment. "My father was murdered too," he finally said. "When I was 19. He was a sheriff in a small town in Texas, and he made the mistake of going after the wrong man's son. The boy had killed someone, but his father owned half the county. My father arrested him anyway, followed the law like he always did. They ambushed him on the road 3 days later." "I am sorry," Olivia whispered. "I became a lawman because of it," William continued. "Thought I could make a difference. thought I could prevent other people from losing their fathers the way I lost mine. Took me 10 years to realize I was fighting a war I could not win. The corruption was too deep, too widespread. I quit 2 years ago, bought some land up here, started raising horses, told myself I was done with other people's problems. But you are not, Olivia said softly. William looked at her, and she saw something in his eyes that made her breath catch. No, he said, I guess I am not. When I saw you behind that wagon, fighting even though you were outnumbered and hurt and exhausted, I saw my father. I saw everyone who ever tried to do the right thing and got crushed for it. And I thought, not this time. This time someone gets to win. Olivia felt tears threatening again. I do not feel like I won anything. You are alive, William said, and Morrison is running scared. That is a start. He stood, settling his hat back on his head. Doc says you need to rest for a few days, let that shoulder heal. When you are ready, we can talk about what comes next. The ranch, your father's affairs, all of it. But right now, you just need to rest. Rest, Olivia repeated, and the word felt foreign on her tongue. She had forgotten what rest felt like. William paused at the door, looking back at her. You fought hard enough, Miss Walsh. You can let someone else carry this for a while. I will make sure Morrison stays away. You have my word. After he left, Olivia lay in the clean bed and stared at the ceiling. Rest now, I will fight for you. The words echoed in her mind, a promise from a stranger who had every reason to walk away and chose not to. She did not understand it, did not understand him, but for the first time in 3 weeks, she felt the tight knot of fear in her chest begin to loosen. She slept for 14 hours straight, and when she woke, William Turner was sitting in a chair by the window, reading a newspaper. He looked up when she stirred and gave her a small smile. Good morning, he said. Or afternoon, I suppose. It is almost 2. Olivia pushed herself up carefully, testing her shoulder. It ached, but the sharp, burning pain had faded to something more manageable. You have been here all night, Doc's orders, William said easily. Someone needed to keep an eye on you in case of fever. Mrs. Hartley has other patients to tend to. Olivia suspected that was not the whole truth, but she did not call him on it. Has there been any news about Morrison? William folded the newspaper and set it aside. The territorial marshal arrived this morning. He brought 2 deputies with him. They have been out at the Triple Crown all morning, going through your father's papers. Morrison has been formally charged with murder and fraud. He is in the jail right now, screaming about his lawyer. The relief was so intense it made Olivia dizzy. It is really over. The immediate danger is over, William said carefully. But there is still a lot to sort out. The ranch is yours by right, but it has been sitting empty for 3 weeks. Some of the hands probably moved on, looking for work elsewhere. The cattle will need to be rounded up and counted. It is going to be a lot of work getting everything back in order. Olivia had not thought that far ahead. She had been so focused on staying alive that she had not considered what came after. I do not know if I can go back there, she admitted. Not to the house where my father died. William nodded slowly. That is understandable. You do not have to decide anything right now. The ranch has been there for 15 years. It will be there next week too. It was everything to my father, Olivia said quietly. He built it from nothing, just him and a dream and a lot of hard work. He wanted to leave me something secure, something that would take care of me after he was gone, and Morrison destroyed it all. Morrison destroyed his life, William corrected gently. The ranch is still there. What your father built is still there. It is just waiting for you to decide what you want to do with it. Olivia looked at him, this man who had appeared like something out of a dream and changed everything. Why are you being so kind to me? William smiled, and it transformed his entire face. I am being decent to you. There is a difference. Kindness should not be so rare that it surprises people when they encounter it. Over the next 3 days, Olivia slowly regained her strength. William visited every morning and evening, bringing her books from the town library and news about the investigation. The territorial marshal had found evidence of Morrison's forgeries and, more importantly, had located 2 ranch hands who had been present the night of Thomas Walsh's murder. They had not pulled the triggers themselves, but they had seen who did, and they were willing to testify in exchange for lighter sentences. "Morrison is finished," William told her on the 4th day. "He will hang for murder, or at best spend the rest of his life in prison. His forged documents are worthless, and his claim to the Triple Crown Ranch has been completely discredited. The property is yours, free and clear." Olivia should have felt triumphant. Instead, she just felt hollow. "I wish my father was here to see it. He knows," William said quietly. "Wherever he is, he knows you fought for what he built. He would be proud of you." That evening, Doc Hartley pronounced Olivia well enough to leave. Her shoulder was healing cleanly, and though she was still weak from blood loss and exhaustion, there was no reason she could not continue recovering somewhere more comfortable. The question was where. "You are welcome to stay at my ranch," William offered as he helped her into his wagon. "I have a housekeeper, Mrs. Chen, who would be happy for the company, and it would give you some time to figure out your next steps without pressure." Olivia knew she should refuse. She barely knew this man, and accepting his hospitality felt like accepting charity. But the thought of going to a hotel, alone and anonymous, made something twist in her chest. And the thought of returning to the Triple Crown, to the house where her father had died, was simply impossible right now. "Just for a few days," she heard herself say, "until I can make proper arrangements." William's ranch was beautiful in a stark, understated way. The house was modest but well built, with a wide porch that looked out over rolling hills dotted with horses. Mrs. Chen turned out to be a tiny Chinese woman with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor who took one look at Olivia and immediately began preparing food. "You are too skinny," she announced. "When did you last eat a proper meal?" "I honestly cannot remember," Olivia admitted. Mrs. Chen made a disapproving sound and disappeared into the kitchen. 20 minutes later, Olivia found herself sitting at a table laden with more food than she had seen in weeks. Roast chicken, fresh bread, vegetables, even a berry pie for dessert. Mrs. Chen takes her cooking very seriously, William said with amusement as he watched Olivia's eyes widen. "I suggest you eat as much as you can, or she will take it as a personal insult." Olivia ate until she thought she might burst, and even then Mrs. Chen looked only moderately satisfied. After dinner, William showed her to a small guest room with a window that overlooked the horse paddocks. "I will be up at dawn to work with the horses," he said, "but there is no rush for you to wake. Take your time, rest as much as you need." Alone in the room, Olivia sat on the edge of the bed and tried to process everything that had happened. A month ago, her biggest worry had been whether the spring calves would fetch a good price at market. Now her father was dead, his murderer was in jail, and she was staying at the ranch of a man she had known for less than a week. She should have felt grateful. She did feel grateful. But underneath, the gratitude was a confusing tangle of other emotions that she could not quite name. Every time William looked at her with those steady gray eyes, something fluttered in her chest. Every time he smiled, she found herself smiling back without thinking about it. It was ridiculous. She had just lost her father, had just spent 3 weeks running for her life. She had no business feeling anything except grief and exhaustion. And yet, Olivia slept deeply that night, lulled by the distant sounds of horses and the knowledge that she was, for the first time in weeks, truly safe. When she woke, sunlight was streaming through the window, and she could hear voices from outside. She dressed carefully, favoring her injured shoulder, and made her way to the front porch. William was in the nearest paddock, working with a young chestnut mare. The horse was clearly green-broke, shying and dancing at the end of the lead rope, but William moved with patient confidence. He spoke to the animal in a low, soothing voice, never pulling on the rope, just waiting for her to settle. When she finally stopped fighting and stood still, ears forward, William approached slowly and ran his hand down her neck. Olivia watched, fascinated. There was something almost meditative about the way he worked, a quiet focus that reminded her of her father working with leather in his shop. These were men who understood that some things could not be rushed, that trust had to be earned slowly and carefully. "He is good with them," Mrs. Chen said, appearing beside Olivia with a cup of coffee. "The horses, they sense he will not hurt them. That is why people bring him the difficult ones, the ones other trainers have given up on." "How long have you worked for him?" Olivia asked, accepting the coffee gratefully. 3 years, Mrs. Chen said. "When I first came to California from Guangdong, my husband and I opened a restaurant in San Francisco. But he died in an accident at the docks, and I could not run the business alone. I heard Mr. Turner was looking for a housekeeper, and I needed work. He has been very kind to me." "He seems to be kind to everyone," Olivia observed. Mrs. Chen gave her a shrewd look. "He is a good man who has seen too much bad in the world. It made him quiet, but it did not make him hard. That is rare." William noticed them on the porch and waved. He said something to the mare, patted her neck one final time, and then led her back to her stall. A few minutes later he joined them on the porch, wiping sweat from his forehead with a bandana. "Did you sleep well?" he asked Olivia. "Better than I have in weeks," she admitted. "Your ranch is peaceful." "That is the idea," William said. "After Texas, I wanted somewhere that did not remind me of all the things I was trying to forget." He looked out at the horses, and Olivia saw something soft in his expression. Horses do not lie and they do not scheme. If you treat them right, they trust you. It is simpler. "People can be trustworthy too," Olivia said quietly. William looked at her and she saw understanding in his eyes. "Some people," he agreed, "but it is harder to tell which ones." Mrs. Chen excused herself to start lunch preparations, leaving Olivia and William alone on the porch. The silence between them was comfortable, broken only by the sounds of the ranch, horses whinnying and the distant call of a hawk overhead. "I have been thinking about the Triple Crown," Olivia finally said. "I need to go back there eventually to settle my father's affairs and decide what to do with the property, but I am not ready yet." "No one expects you to be," William said. "I keep thinking about what you said, about how the ranch is still there, still waiting. My father spent 15 years building something good. It seems wrong to let it fall apart just because I am afraid to go back." William turned to face her fully. "What are you saying?" "I am saying I want to save the ranch," Olivia said, surprised by the conviction in her own voice. "I want to honor what my father built, but I cannot do it alone. I do not know enough about running a cattle operation, and I do not have the hands to do the work even if I did." "You could hire a foreman," William suggested, "someone experienced who could handle the day-to-day operations." "I could," Olivia agreed, "but I do not know who I can trust anymore. Morrison was my father's partner, someone he trusted, and look what happened." She took a breath. "I was hoping maybe you could help me. Not permanently, just until I get my feet under me. You know cattle, you know horses, and more importantly, I trust you." William was quiet for a long moment. "That is a big ask," he finally said. "I know," Olivia said quickly. "And I understand if you say no. You have your own ranch to run, your own life. but I would pay you fairly for your time, and it would not be forever. Just long enough to help me find good people and get the operation stable again." "It is not about the money," William said, "and it is not about the time. I just want to make sure you are asking for the right reasons. Not because you feel obligated to me for helping you, or because you think you owe me something. Because you do not. I am asking because I need help, and you are the only person I trust to give it," Olivia said honestly. "And because I think my father would have approved of you." Something shifted in William's expression, some wall coming down. "All right," he said. "I will help you, but we do it properly. We draw up a contract, everything legal and clear. You pay me a fair wage, and in return, I will work with you to get the Triple Crown back on its feet. Once you feel confident running it yourself, we part ways professionally." "Agreed, agreed," Olivia said, relief flooding through her. They shook hands on it, and Olivia tried to ignore the way her pulse jumped at the contact. This was a business arrangement, nothing more. The fact that William Turner made her feel safe for the first time in weeks, the fact that his smile made her forget to breathe, those were just side effects of trauma and gratitude. They would fade with time. At least, that was what she told herself. Over the next week, William and Olivia began the process of assessing the Triple Crown Ranch. They rode out to the property together, and Olivia steeled herself as they approached the main house. It looked smaller than she remembered, more vulnerable. The windows were dark, and the porch where she used to sit with her father on summer evenings seemed to sag with neglect. "We do not have to go inside if you are not ready," William said gently, but Olivia shook her head. She had to do this eventually, and putting it off would only make it harder. "Let's go." The inside of the house was exactly as she had left it 3 weeks ago. Her father's coffee cup still sat on the kitchen table, now filled with mold. Papers were scattered across his desk in the study, and Olivia quickly looked away from the dark stain on the floor near the chair. William, to his credit, said nothing, just moved through the house methodically, checking windows and doors, making notes about what needed to be repaired or replaced. "The structure is sound," he finally said. "Some of your father's personal effects will need to be dealt with, and you will want to clean thoroughly, but the house itself is in good shape." They spent the rest of the day riding the property lines, checking fences and water sources. It was clear that without supervision, things had started to deteriorate. Fences needed mending, the main well needed to be cleared, and the cattle had scattered across the range, mixing with neighboring herds. "It is a lot of work," William said as they rode back toward the house at sunset. "But nothing that cannot be fixed with time and effort. The land itself is good, the grazing is solid. Your father chose well when he staked his claim here." "He always said California was going to be the future," Olivia said softly. "That the state was young enough that a man could still make his mark if he worked hard enough." "He was right about that," William said, "and about a lot of other things too, I imagine." Over dinner that night at William's ranch, they made plans. They would need to hire at least 6 hands to start with, maybe 8. There was a cattle auction in Sacramento in 2 weeks where they could sell off some of the older stock and reinvest in breeding animals. The house would need to be cleaned and prepared, and Olivia would need to decide whether she wanted to live there or hire a foreman to stay on the property. "I should live there," Olivia said, though the thought made her stomach clench. "It is my ranch, my responsibility. I cannot run it from a distance." "You also do not have to rush into anything," William pointed out. "The ranch has been sitting for 3 weeks. Another month will not make much difference. Give yourself time to grieve, to heal. Then decide what you want to do." Olivia knew he was right, but she also knew herself. If she did not push forward, if she did not keep moving, the grief would swallow her whole. "I need to stay busy," she said. I need to feel like I am doing something useful, or I will go crazy thinking about everything I have lost." William studied her across the table, and Olivia saw understanding in his eyes. "All right," he said, "but we do it smart. We start slow, hire carefully, build things back up piece by piece. No trying to fix everything at once." "Agreed," Olivia said. They fell into a routine over the following weeks. Every morning, William would work with his horses while Olivia helped Mrs. Chen around the house, gradually building back her strength. In the afternoons, they would ride to the Triple Crown together and work on whatever needed doing. They mended fences, cleared brush, repaired the windmill that pumped water from the well. The physical labor was exhausting, but it was also healing in a way Olivia had not expected. Every nail she drove, every post she set, felt like a small act of defiance against Morrison and everything he had tried to destroy. William was patient with her, teaching her things her father had never gotten around to showing her. How to properly splice barbed wire, how to read cattle brands, how to judge the quality of grazing land by the plants that grew there. He treated her like a partner, not a fragile thing that needed to be protected, and Olivia appreciated that more than she could say. The territorial marshal closed his investigation after 6 weeks. Morrison was formally indicted for murder, fraud, and arson. 2 of his men turned state's evidence in exchange for lighter sentences, and their testimony sealed Morrison's fate. The trial was set for late September, and Olivia was informed she would need to testify. The thought terrified her, but William promised to be there with her every step of the way. "You have already done the hard part," he told her. "You survived and you fought back. Testifying is just telling the truth. You can do that." Slowly, the Triple Crown began to come back to life. They hired 4 experienced ranch hands, men with good references who had worked in the area for years. They repaired the bunkhouse and stocked it with supplies. They bought a small herd of breeding cattle at auction, quality animals that would form the foundation of a new operation. And bit by bit, Olivia began to feel something that might have been hope. She also began to feel something else, something that had nothing to do with the ranch and everything to do with William Turner. She found herself watching him when he did not know she was looking, admiring the easy way he moved, the quiet competence with which he approached every task. She liked the sound of his laugh, rare but genuine when it came. She liked the way he listened when she talked, really listened, like her words mattered. And she liked the way he looked at her sometimes, when he thought she was not paying attention, with an expression that made her heart race. It was ridiculous, she told herself. They were business partners, nothing more. He was helping her because he was a good man who had known her father. The fact that she found herself thinking about him at odd moments, wondering what it would be like to kiss him, to feel his arms around her, that was just loneliness and gratitude getting confused with attraction. At least, that was what she kept telling herself. Right up until the moment everything changed. It was late August, and they were working on clearing brush near the northern property line when Olivia's horse spooked at a rattlesnake. The mare reared, and Olivia, caught off guard, lost her seat and fell hard. The wind was knocked out of her, and for a moment she just lay in the dust, trying to remember how to breathe. William was off his horse and beside her in seconds. "Do not move," he said urgently. "Tell me where it hurts." "Everywhere," Olivia gasped out and then started laughing because it was so absurd. "I am fine, just had the wind knocked out of me." But William was not laughing. His hands moved over her carefully, checking for broken bones, and his face was pale. "You scared me," he said quietly. "I am all right," Olivia assured him. "Really, William, I have had worse." He sat back on his heels, and Olivia saw that his hands were shaking. "When I saw you fall," he said, and his voice was rough. For a second, I thought I was going to lose you, and I realized that would be the worst thing that could possibly happen to me." Olivia froze. "William." He looked at her, and there was no hiding the emotion in his eyes now. "I know this is not professional. I know you hired me to help with the ranch, and I should keep things businesslike between us. But Olivia, I cannot stop thinking about you. I cannot stop wanting to be near you, wanting to make you smile, wanting to protect you from every bad thing in the world. And I know the timing is terrible. I know you are still grieving your father and dealing with everything that happened, but I had to tell you. I had to let you know that what I feel for you goes way beyond a professional arrangement." Olivia's heart was pounding so hard she thought it might burst out of her chest. "How long?" she whispered. "Since the day I saw you behind that wagon in San Jose," William admitted, "fighting even though you had every reason to give up. You were the bravest thing I had ever seen, and I knew right then that you were going to change my life." Olivia reached up and touched his face, feeling the stubble on his jaw, the warmth of his skin. "I thought it was just me," she said. "I thought I was imagining things, or that my feelings were just confused because you saved me." "And now?" William asked, covering her hand with his own. "Now I think I am falling in love with you," Olivia said, and the words felt like truth and freedom and terrifying vulnerability all at once. "I think I have been falling for weeks, and I was too scared to admit it because I did not want to lose what we have. Your friendship, your partnership, it means everything to me." "You are not going to lose it," William said fiercely. "You are not going to lose me. I am here for as long as you want me, in whatever way you want me." "I want all of you," Olivia said. "I want your partnership and your friendship and your love. I want to wake up every morning knowing you are there. I want to build the ranch back up with you by my side. I want everything, William." He kissed her then, and it was nothing like Olivia had imagined. It was better. His lips were gentle but insistent, and when she kissed him back, she felt something slot into place inside her chest, like a key turning in a lock. This was right. This was what she had been looking for without even knowing it. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, William rested his forehead against hers. "We should probably get up off the ground," he said. "Probably," Olivia agreed, but neither of them moved. They rode back to William's ranch in a daze, hands occasionally brushing as they guided their horses side by side. Mrs. Chen took one look at them when they walked through the door and smiled knowingly. "Finally," she said. "I was wondering how long it would take for you two to figure it out." "Were we that obvious?" Olivia asked, feeling her cheeks heat. "Only to everyone with eyes," Mrs. Chen said dryly. "Mr. Turner has been looking at you like you hung the moon for weeks, and you have been just as bad. I am glad you both stopped being stubborn." That evening they sat on the porch together as the sun set, William's arm around Olivia's shoulders. They did not talk much. They did not need to. Everything important had already been said. "What happens now?" Olivia finally asked. "Now we keep doing what we have been doing," William said. "We work on the ranch, we build something good together, but we do it as more than business partners." "I am still going to pay you," Olivia said firmly. "I do not want you to think I am taking advantage." William laughed. "I know you are going to pay me. You are the most stubborn woman I have ever met. But Olivia, I am not doing this for the money anymore. I am doing it because I want to be with you, because building a future with you sounds like the best thing I can imagine." Olivia turned to look at him, memorizing the lines of his face in the fading light. "I never thought I could feel this way again," she admitted. "After my father died, after everything with Morrison, I thought maybe I was broken somehow, like I had used up all my capacity for trust and hope." "You are not broken," William said. "You are one of the strongest people I have ever met, and you do not have to be strong all the time anymore. That is what I am here for, to be strong when you need to rest, to fight when you are too tired to keep going. Rest now, I will fight for you, Olivia murmured, remembering the words he had said that first day in San Jose, words she had been too delirious to fully process at the time. Exactly, William said, pressing a kiss to her temple. You have fought hard enough, Olivia Walsh. Let me share the burden now. They worked side by side through September, preparing for the trial and continuing to rebuild the Triple Crown. The ranch hands they had hired proved to be good workers, and slowly the property began to look like a functioning cattle operation again. Olivia moved into the main house, though she spent most evenings at William's ranch, and she found that being there was easier than she had expected. The house held memories of her father, but they were good memories now, not just painful ones. The trial began in late September, held in the courthouse in San Jose. Morrison maintained his innocence throughout, but the evidence against him was overwhelming. The two ranch hands who had turned state's evidence testified about seeing Morrison arguing with Thomas Walsh the night of the murder. The foreman's widow testified about the threats Morrison had made. And Olivia herself took the stand and told the story of that terrible night, of finding her father dead, of Morrison's men hunting her across the countryside. William sat in the courtroom every day, a solid presence in the front row. Whenever Olivia felt herself faltering, whenever the defense attorney's questions made her doubt herself, she would look at William and draw strength from his steady gaze. The jury deliberated for less than 3 hours. They found Morrison guilty on all counts. The judge sentenced him to hang, and Olivia felt nothing but a bone-deep relief that it was finally over. You did it, William said afterward, holding her as she cried tears of exhaustion and release. It is done. He cannot hurt you anymore. Thank you, Olivia whispered against his chest. For everything. For believing in me when I did not believe in myself. For fighting for me when I was too tired to fight anymore. Always, William said simply. October brought cooler weather and the start of the fall roundup. Olivia and William worked alongside the ranch hands, gathering cattle, branding calves, sorting the herd. It was exhausting work, but satisfying in a way that Olivia had never experienced before. This was her ranch, her legacy, and she was making it thrive. One evening after a particularly long day, William found her standing on the porch of the Triple Crown's main house, looking out at the land her father had loved. He wrapped his arms around her from behind, and she leaned back against his chest. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. "My father," Olivia said, "wishing he could see this, wishing he could meet you. I think he would have liked you very much." "I wish I could have known him better," William said. "From everything you have told me, he was an extraordinary man." "He was," Olivia agreed. "He taught me that the land will take care of you if you take care of it. That integrity matters more than profit. That the measure of a person is not what they say, but what they do when things get difficult." "Sounds like you learned the lessons well," William said. Olivia turned in his arms to face him. "I have been thinking about something else too," she said. "About the future, about what I want my life to look like." "And what do you want?" William asked softly. "I want you," Olivia said. "Not just as my partner in running the ranch, but as my partner in everything. I want to build a life with you, William Turner. I want to wake up beside you every morning and fall asleep in your arms every night. I want to raise children with you, to grow old with you, to spend every day I have left on this earth loving you." William's expression transformed, joy and wonder and love all mixed together. "Olivia Walsh, is that a proposal?" "I suppose it is," Olivia said, feeling suddenly nervous. "I know women are not supposed to be the ones to ask, but I have never been very good at doing what I am supposed to do, and I know what I want. I want you." "Yes," William said, and his voice was rough with emotion. Yes, 1,000 times yes, I will marry you, Olivia. I will spend the rest of my life loving you and protecting you, and being grateful that I was in the right place at the right time to save you that day in San Jose. He kissed her then, deep and thorough, and Olivia felt like her heart might explode from happiness. When they finally broke apart, both grinning like fools, William said, "Though I should warn you, I plan to propose properly, with a ring and everything. I am not letting you steal all my thunder." "You can propose as many times as you want," Olivia said, laughing. "I will say yes every time." William made good on his promise 2 weeks later. He took Olivia on a sunset ride to the highest point on the Triple Crown property, a hill that overlooked both her ranch and his. There, with the valley spread out below them and the sky painted in shades of gold and crimson, he got down on one knee and pulled out a simple gold ring. "Olivia Walsh," he said, "you are the bravest, strongest, most stubborn woman I have ever met. You have challenged me, inspired me, and made me believe in love again. Will you do me the honor of becoming my wife?" "Yes," Olivia said, tears streaming down her face. "Yes, absolutely yes." He slipped the ring on her finger and it fit perfectly. Later, he would tell her that he had bought it in San Jose the week after he met her, certain even then that she was the woman he wanted to spend his life with. Olivia would call him a romantic fool, and he would kiss her and agree. They were married in early November, in a small ceremony at the church in San Jose. Mrs. Chen stood as Olivia's witness, beaming with pride. The ranch hands from both the Triple Crown and Williams Horse Ranch attended, along with a handful of townspeople who had known Thomas Walsh and wanted to see his daughter happy. It was simple and perfect, and when the pastor pronounced them husband and wife, Olivia felt her father's presence like a warm hand on her shoulder, giving his blessing. The first months of marriage were an adjustment. William moved into the main house at the Triple Crown, and they began the process of truly blending their lives together. They combined their herds, with William's horses and Olivia's cattle sharing the range eland. They hired more hands and built a new barn. They planted an orchard on the south end of the property, thinking ahead to the future, to the children they hoped to have someday. It was not always easy. There were disagreements about how to run things, moments of frustration when the work seemed overwhelming, days when Olivia still felt the weight of her father's loss like a physical ache. But William was always there, steady and patient and loving. When she was too tired to keep going, he picked up the slack. When she doubted herself, he reminded her of everything she had overcome. And when she cried, missing her father, he simply held her and let her grieve. Winter brought rain and cold, and they spent long evenings by the fire, making plans for the spring. Olivia taught William her father's recipe for beef stew, and William taught Olivia card games he had learned during his years as a lawman. Mrs. Chen visited often, claiming she needed to check that William was eating properly but really just enjoying the company. She had become like family, and both William and Olivia treasured her presence in their lives. In February, Olivia realized she was pregnant. She told William one morning at breakfast, watching nervously for his reaction. He went very still, his coffee cup halfway to his lips, and then a smile broke across his face like sunrise. "Really?" he asked, his voice hushed with wonder. "Really," Olivia confirmed. "I have missed 2 courses now, and I have been sick every morning for the past week. I am fairly certain." William was out of his chair in an instant, pulling her into his arms and spinning her around until she laughed and begged him to stop. "We are going to have a baby," he said, as if he could not quite believe it. "Olivia, we are going to be parents." "I know," she said, her own joy tempered by nervousness. "Are you happy about it? I know we have not been married very long." "Happy." William set her down carefully and cupped her face in his hands. "I am ecstatic. Terrified, but ecstatic. You are going to be an amazing mother, Olivia." "And you are going to be an amazing father," she replied. The pregnancy progressed smoothly through the spring and into summer. Olivia continued working on the ranch as long as she could, refusing to be treated like an invalid. William fussed over her constantly, much to her amusement and occasional irritation, but she appreciated the care even when she grumbled about it. Mrs. Chen moved into the guest room as Olivia's due date approached, determined to be there when the baby came. "You will need help," she said firmly when Olivia tried to protest. "And Mr. Turner will be useless with worry. I know about these things." She was right on both counts. When Olivia went into labor in late October, almost exactly a year after they had married, William paced the kitchen like a caged animal while Mrs. Chen and the midwife attended to Olivia. The labor was long and difficult, and there were moments when Olivia thought she could not possibly continue. But then she would hear William's voice from the other room, talking to calm his nerves, and she would find the strength to keep going. Their son was born just after dawn, red-faced and screaming with impressive lung capacity. The midwife placed him in Olivia's arms, and she looked down at the tiny face and felt her entire world shift. This was her child, hers and William's, a perfect blend of both of them. William was allowed in a few minutes later, and the expression on his face when he saw his son made Olivia's heart clench. "He is perfect," William whispered, reaching out a tentative finger to touch the baby's tiny hand. "Olivia, he is absolutely perfect." "He needs a name," Olivia said. They had discussed names throughout the pregnancy, but nothing had felt quite right. Now, looking at her husband's awed face, Olivia knew exactly what she wanted to call their child. "Thomas," she said softly. "After my father, Thomas William Turner." William's eyes filled with tears. "Your father would have been so proud," he said. "Of you, of us, of this little one." "I think he knows," Olivia said. "Wherever he is, I think he knows, and I think he is smiling." Little Thomas grew quickly, a healthy, energetic baby who filled the house with noise and joy. Olivia marveled at motherhood, at the fierce protective love she felt for this tiny person. William proved to be a natural father, patient and playful, spending hours with his son even after long days of ranch work. The Triple Crown continued to thrive. They had expanded the herd and improved the breeding stock to the point where the ranch was considered one of the best cattle operations in the region. William's horse ranch had also grown, and he had developed a reputation for training animals that others had given up on. They were successful, comfortable, building the kind of legacy that Thomas Walsh would have been proud of. 2 years after Thomas was born, Olivia gave birth to their second child, a daughter they named Sarah. She had her father's gray eyes and her mother's determination, and from the moment she could walk, she was toddling after her older brother, refusing to be left behind. William joked that they had their hands full, and Olivia could only laugh and agree. Life settled into a rhythm of work and family, hard days and sweet evenings, challenges overcome and victories celebrated. There were difficult times, of course. A drought one year that nearly broke them. A bad winter that cost them part of the herd. Thomas getting sick with scarlet fever and 3 agonizing days before the fever broke. But they faced everything together, William and Olivia, partners in every sense of the word. On their 5th wedding anniversary, William took Olivia back to the hill where he had proposed. Mrs. Chen watched the children, shooing them away with instructions to take their time. They rode up as the sun was setting, just as they had that first time, and sat together looking out over the land they had built into something remarkable. "You ever regret it?" William asked. "All of this, I mean." "The hard work, the challenges, staying in California instead of selling the ranch and starting over somewhere easier. Olivia looked at him, surprised. "Never," she said firmly. "This is where I am supposed to be, with you building the life my father dreamed of. Why would you ask that?" "Because I want to make sure you are happy," William said. "That is all I have ever wanted, Olivia, your happiness." "I am happy," Olivia said, and it was true. Not the simple, uncomplicated happiness of youth, but something deeper and more durable. "I am exactly where I want to be, with exactly who I want to be with. You gave me that, William. When I was too tired to keep fighting, you fought for me. You gave me the space to heal, and then you helped me build something beautiful out of the ashes of my grief." "We built it together," William corrected. "I could not have done any of this without you." "Then we are a good team," Olivia said, leaning her head on his shoulder. "The best," William agreed. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the sun paint the sky in brilliant colors. In the distance, they could see the lights of their house starting to glow, Mrs. Chen probably lighting lamps and preparing dinner. Their children were there, safe and loved. The ranch was thriving. And Olivia had this man beside her, this wonderful, steadfast man who had walked into her life at her darkest moment and refused to leave. "Thank you," she said quietly. "For what?" William asked. "For seeing me that day in San Jose," Olivia said. "For not riding past. For caring about a stranger's fight. For everything that came after." William turned to look at her, and the love in his eyes made Olivia's breath catch even after 5 years of marriage. "I did not save you that day," he said. "You saved yourself, Olivia. You were already fighting, already refusing to give up. I just gave you a moment to catch your breath. Everything else, all of this, you did that. You are the bravest person I know." "I am brave because you taught me I did not have to be strong alone," Olivia replied. "That is the gift you gave me, William. Not rescue, but partnership. Not salvation, but love." He kissed her then, soft and sweet, and Olivia felt the same flutter in her chest that she had felt that first time when they were covered in dust and still figuring out what they meant to each other. Some things, she thought, did not fade with time. Some things just grew stronger and deeper and more essential. They rode back to the house as the stars came out, and Olivia thought about everything that had brought her to this moment. Her father's death, Morrison's betrayal, 3 weeks of running and fear and exhaustion. That day in San Jose when she had been ready to give up. William Turner appearing like something out of a story, offering her a second chance at life. It had not been easy. Nothing worthwhile ever was. But it had been worth it. Every struggle, every challenge, every moment of doubt had led her here to this life, this family, this love. She had lost her father, and that wound would never fully heal. But she had also gained a partner, a husband, children, a future bright with possibility. The house was warm when they entered, filled with the smell of Mrs. Chen's cooking and the sound of their children's laughter. Thomas ran to greet them, talking excitedly about something he and Sarah had done that afternoon. William scooped him up, laughing, while Olivia went to find their daughter. After dinner, they sat together in the living room, William in his favorite chair with Thomas on his lap, Olivia on the sofa with Sarah dozing against her shoulder. Mrs. Chen was cleaning up in the kitchen, humming to herself. Outside, the night was clear and calm, stars bright above the California hills. This was home, Olivia thought. Not just the house, not just the land, but this feeling of belonging, of being surrounded by love. Her father had built the foundation, but she and William had built the rest together, one day at a time, one choice at a time, one act of love at a time. "What are you thinking about?" William asked, noticing her expression. "Just that I am glad you are a stubborn man," Olivia said with a smile. "If you had listened when I said I did not need help, if you had ridden away that day in San Jose, none of this would exist." "I could not ride away," William said simply. "The moment I saw you, I was lost. I just did not know it yet." "When did you know?" Olivia asked, curious. William considered the question. "Probably when you woke up in Doc Hartley's office and the first thing you asked about was Morrison. Not your injuries, not whether you were safe, but whether the fight was over. That was when I knew you were someone special. Someone worth knowing, worth loving, worth building a life with." "I was terrified of you at first," Olivia admitted. "Not of you personally, but of what you represented. The idea that someone could care about what happened to me, that I did not have to face everything alone. It seemed too good to be true." "And now?" William asked. "Now I know it is true," Olivia said. "I know you are real and this is real, and I never have to be alone again unless I choose to be." Sarah stirred in her sleep, making a small sound, and Olivia adjusted her hold on her daughter. These children, she thought, would grow up knowing they were loved. They would know their grandfather's story, know about the ranch he had built and the integrity he had lived by. But they would also know that the world could be good, that people could be trusted, that love was worth fighting for. That was Thomas Walsh's real legacy, Olivia realized. Not the cattle or the land, but the values he had passed on. The belief that hard work mattered, that integrity mattered, that treating people with respect and fairness mattered. And Olivia would pass those same values to her children, who would pass them to theirs, an inheritance more valuable than any amount of money or property. The years continued to unfold, each one bringing its own joys and challenges. Thomas grew into a serious, thoughtful boy who loved working with the horses as much as his father did. Sarah was more interested in the cattle, following Olivia around the ranch and asking endless questions about everything. When she was 6, Olivia started teaching her to ride, and Sarah took to it with natural grace. They had one more child, another son born when Olivia was 32. They named him Matthew, and he was the most easygoing of their children, content to sit and watch the world with calm, observant eyes. William joked that Matthew had gotten all the patience that his siblings lacked, and Olivia could not argue with that. The ranch continued to prosper. They bought out a neighboring property when the owner retired, expanding the Triple Crowns range. They invested in better breeding stock and modern equipment. They built a new barn and renovated the old bunkhouse. The ranch that Thomas Walsh had started with a dream and determination had become one of the premier cattle operations in California. But more than the material success, what mattered to Olivia was the life they had built. The family dinners where everyone gathered around the table to share their day. The quiet evenings when she and William would sit on the porch, holding hands and watching the sunset. The sound of her children's laughter. The knowledge that she was loved and valued, not for what she could do but for who she was. William's hair started going gray when he was in his 40s, and Olivia teased him about it mercilessly until she found her first silver strand. Then they laughed together about getting old and agreed that it was better than the alternative. They had earned these gray hairs, earned every line on their faces, through hard work and love and the simple passage of time. Mrs. Chen remained a constant presence in their lives, eventually retiring from housekeeping, but staying on as a beloved honorary grandmother to the children. She taught them Cantonese songs and how to make dumplings, and they adored her. When she passed away peacefully in her sleep at the age of 73, the entire family mourned. They buried her in the small cemetery outside San Jose, and Olivia made sure fresh flowers were placed on her grave every week. Thomas, the eldest, took over much of the day-to-day operation of the ranch when he turned 20, showing the same steady competence his father had. Sarah, to no one's surprise, became an expert horsewoman and started a breeding program of her own, specializing in working horses for cattle operations. Matthew went to San Francisco to study law, eventually returning to practice in San Jose, where he became known for taking cases that others would not touch, defending people who could not afford fancy lawyers. Olivia and William watched their children grow and thrive with profound gratitude. This was what they had been building all along, not just a successful ranch but a family, a legacy, something that would outlast them. On their 25th wedding anniversary, their children threw them a celebration at the ranch. Friends and neighbors came from miles around. There was music and dancing and more food than anyone could eat. And when William took Olivia's hand and led her out for a dance under the stars, she thought about that terrified, exhausted woman behind the wagon in San Jose all those years ago. That woman had been too tired to keep fighting. She had been ready to give up, ready to let the world beat her down. But then a stranger had stepped forward and said, "Rest now, I will fight for you." And everything had changed. "What are you thinking about?" William asked as they swayed to the music. "About how lucky I am," Olivia said. "About how one moment, one choice can change everything. If you had not been in San Jose that day, if you had not decided to help me, none of this would exist." "I think it would have," William said thoughtfully. "Maybe not exactly like this, but something good would have come from it. You are too strong, too determined to have stayed beaten down for long. You would have found a way." "Maybe," Olivia allowed, "but it would not have been as good, it would not have been with you, and that would have been a tragedy." William pulled her closer. "I love you, Olivia Turner. I have loved you for 25 years, and I will love you for whatever time we have left. You are my heart, my home, my everything." "I love you too," Olivia whispered. "Thank you for fighting for me when I was too tired. Thank you for building this life with me. Thank you for being exactly who you are." They danced until the music stopped, until their children came to pull them back to the party, until the stars wheeled overhead and the night grew late. And Olivia thought that this, right here, was what happiness looked like. Not the absence of struggle or pain, but the presence of love and family and purpose. The knowledge that you had lived well, loved deeply, and left the world a little better than you found it. The years continued their steady march. William and Olivia grew older. Their children had children of their own, and the cycle of life continued. They slowed down eventually, handing more and more of the ranch operations to Thomas and Sarah, spending their days in quiet contentment. They took long walks around the property, remembering different events that had happened in different places. Here was where they had built the new barn. There was where Sarah had learned to rope her first calf. Over that hill was where William had proposed. Every memory was precious, every moment treasured. They had built something beautiful together, and they knew it. William passed away peacefully in his sleep at the age of 78, with Olivia holding his hand. She woke in the morning to find him gone, and though the grief was sharp and deep, she also felt a profound sense of gratitude. They had had 43 years together, years filled with love and partnership and joy. Not everyone got that. They had been blessed. She buried him on the hill where he had proposed, overlooking the land they had loved and worked together. Their children and grandchildren gathered around as the pastor spoke about William's life, his integrity, his kindness, his devotion to family. And Olivia stood there with dry eyes, remembering not the end but the beginning. A cowboy on a black horse, stepping between her and danger, offering her a second chance at life. She lived for another 8 years, watching her grandchildren grow, seeing the ranch continue to thrive. She wrote down stories about her father and about William, making sure the next generation would know where they came from and what had been sacrificed to build the life they now enjoyed. She told them about courage and integrity, about love that endured, about fighting for what mattered. And when her time finally came, at the age of 83, she went peacefully, surrounded by family. Her last thought was of William, of the day they met, of his voice saying, "Rest now, I will fight for you." She had rested. She had healed. And then she had fought alongside him, building something beautiful and lasting. She regretted nothing. They buried her beside William on the hill, and their children made sure the graves were always tended, always marked with fresh flowers. The Triple Crown Ranch continued for generations, passed down from parent to child, each one knowing the story of how it all began. Of Thomas Walsh, who built a dream. Of Olivia Walsh, who refused to let that dream die. And of William Turner, the cowboy who stepped forward when someone needed help and found love in the most unlikely place. The land remembered them. The hills and valleys they had ridden together, the cattle they had raised, the horses that carried their brand. All of it remained, a testament to two people who had loved deeply and lived well. And on quiet evenings when the wind blew just right, people would swear they could hear laughter from the top of the hill, where two graves sat side by side, eternally watching over the land they had loved. The laughter of a woman who had been too tired to keep fighting, and the man who had fought for her, and the life they had built together from the ashes of tragedy and fear. It was a good life. It was a beautiful life. And it all began with a simple act of courage from a stranger who chose not to ride away, who chose to stand and fight, who chose to love. That was the legacy that endured, more permanent than stone, more valuable than gold. The legacy of love freely given and deeply returned, of partnership and devotion, of building something that would outlast them both. The story ended, but the love remained. And that, Olivia would have said, was exactly how it should be.